Hi, Emmanuel here. I am the CEO and founder of T2S, and T2S stands for Transform to Succeed. In this video, I'll just walk you through some of the questions related to Kubernetes which may come during an interview. I'm gonna provide my answers to some of those questions as best as I can. But before I do that, let me walk you through the architecture of a Kubernetes cluster. So when you think of it, it has two major components. You have the control plane, and then you have the worker nodes. So the control plane has the following. It has these 4 major or 5 major elements. And as we go through the questions, you get a better sense of what these elements stand for, and then what role they play as part of the control plane. Then you have the node, and the node has the following components: kubelet, kubeproxy, and pods. And you can have more than one node as part of your cluster, which is one of the best practices for high availability, and making your application more accessible and always there for your customers. And this is just an overview, a high-level overview of Kubernetes cluster. So let's begin with the questions. Question number 1, what is Kubernetes? It was first developed by Google. It is an open source platform. It is a container orchestrator. It does the following: number 1, automation, deployment, scaling, and management of applications. What are pods in Kubernetes? Pods are the smallest deployable units in Kubernetes. They represent one or more containers running together on a single node. Pods share the same IP address and storage. What is node? What is a node in Kubernetes? Nodes are worker machines in Kubernetes. This could be virtual or physical systems that host services to run your pods. The control node manages the worker nodes. What is a cluster in Kubernetes? A cluster is a collection of nodes managed by the Kubernetes control node. The control node orchestrates workloads. The control node maintains desired states, and the control node monitors the health of all of the elements that you have on your cluster. Explain the Kubernetes control node's role. The control node manages the cluster, including the API server, scheduler, controller manager, and etcd. The control node orchestrates workloads, maintains the desired state. It serves as the primary communication point for users and applications. What is a deployment in Kubernetes? A deployment is a Kubernetes object that manages the lifecycle of replica sets and pods. It allows for rolling updates, rollbacks, and scaling, making it easier to maintain application versions. What is a replica set in Kubernetes? A replica set ensures that a specified number of identical pod replicas are running at all times. A replica set allows for horizontal scaling and fault tolerance. How does the Kubernetes scheduler work? The scheduler assigns pods to nodes. It uses the following to optimize resource allocations across the cluster. Number 1, resource requirements, affinity and anti-affinity rules, taints and tolerations. What are daemon sets? Daemon sets ensure that a copy of a specific pod runs on all or some of the nodes. Commonly used for monitoring and logging applications like Prometheus or Fluentd. What is the use of StatefulSets? StatefulSets manage stateful applications with unique pod identities and persistent storage. Ideal for databases or applications where each instance needs a consistent identity. What is the Kubernetes service? A service is an abstraction that defines a logical set of pods and access policies. It exposes applications internally within a cluster or externally to outside users. How does Kubernetes handle service discovery? Kubernetes offers a DNS-based service discovery. Each service has the following: a DNS name, environment variables. What are Ingress controllers in Kubernetes? Ingress controllers manage external access to services. They support HTTP/HTTPS routing, load balancing, SSL termination, and name-based virtual hosting. Explain the concept of cluster IP, node port, and load balancer. Cluster IP exposes a service only within the cluster. Node port exposes a service on each node's IP at a static port. Load balancer uses a cloud provider's load balancer to expose services externally. What are network policies? Network policies control traffic between pods. They allow or deny connections based on labels, namespaces, IP blocks for enhanced security. What is persistent volume or PV? A PV or persistent volume is a storage resource in Kubernetes that exists independently of any pod. It provides durable storage for stateful applications across cluster restarts. What is persistent volume claim or PVC? A PVC or persistent volume claim is a storage request by a pod. It dynamically provisions storage for applications. It links pods to persistent volumes. Explain storage classes in Kubernetes. Storage classes enable dynamic storage provisioning based on predefined storage types and quality. You can use storage classes from cloud providers or local storage. What is the difference between empty dir and host path? Empty dir provides temporary storage within a pod, while host path mounts a directory from the host node's file system. You can use storage classes from cloud providers or local storage. How does Kubernetes manage storage with StatefulSets? StatefulSets provide each pod a unique volume based on its identity. It ensures persistent storage even when pods are rescheduled. What are config maps? Config maps store non-confidential configuration data such as environment variables in key value pairs. Pods can consume config maps as environment variables or mounted volumes. What are secrets in Kubernetes? Secrets store sensitive information like passwords or tokens in an encoded format. Secrets can be used as environment variables or mounted as files within pods. Explain Helm in Kubernetes. Helm is a Kubernetes package manager that simplifies deployment, management, versioning. What are operators in Kubernetes? Operators extend Kubernetes by managing applications and configurations. Deployment, management, versioning. What are operators in Kubernetes? Operators extend Kubernetes by managing applications and configurations. What is a custom resource definition, CRD? CRDs allow users to define custom objects in Kubernetes. They enable the Kubernetes API to manage custom resources and extend the ecosystem. What is RBAC in Kubernetes? Role-based access control, or RBAC, restricts access to Kubernetes. What RBAC does: number one, it defines roles and role bindings. It enables granular permission control across clusters. What are network policies used in Kubernetes? Network policies manage ingress and egress rules between pods and external sources. They enhance security by allowing administrators to control traffic. How are Kubernetes secrets secured? Kubernetes secrets are base 64-encoded. Configure encryption at rest for additional security. Control access through RBAC, or role-based access control. Explain pod security policies. Pod security policies enforce security restrictions on pods. Security restrictions consist of the following: as non-root, read-only root file systems, volume access controls. What is an admission controller in Kubernetes? Admission controllers intercept API requests. They enforce policies or modify objects before they are persisted in the etcd. They support security, compliance, and operational control. How do you troubleshoot a pod stuck in the pending state? Pending state issues often arise from insufficient resources or scheduling conflicts. Resource constraints, taints and tolerations, node availability. What does crash loopback off mean, and how do you resolve it? Crash loopback off indicates a pod that is repeatedly crashing. Check logs using kubectl logs. Inspect health probes, environment configurations, and container image errors. How do you debug a failing deployment? Verify deployment events. Check replica set and pod status. Inspect pod logs. Confirm resource allocations and configuration details. What tools can you use for monitoring Kubernetes? Prometheus, Grafana, and the ELK stack are the most popular tools. They provide metrics, logs, and insights into the cluster health. Explain the purpose of kubectl describe and kubectl logs. kubectl describe provides detailed information about Kubernetes resources. kubectl logs command retrieves container logs for troubleshooting. How can you scale a Kubernetes cluster? Use Cluster Autoscaler for dynamic scaling. Manually add nodes via cloud provider settings or kubeadm. What is etcd in Kubernetes? etcd is a distributed key value store that stores Kubernetes configuration data and cluster state. etcd ensures high availability and fault tolerance. How can you upgrade a Kubernetes cluster? Use kubeadm upgrade or cloud provider tools for managed clusters. The command will ensure that all components are updated incrementally. What is horizontal pod autoscaler, HPA? HPA automatically scales pods based on CPU or custom metrics. It allows applications to maintain performance under varying loads. Explain Kubernetes Federation. Kubernetes Federation allows you to manage multiple clusters as one. It enables cross-region workload distribution for high availability. How do you implement CI/CD with Kubernetes? Use tools like Jenkins, GitLab, Argo CD, and more. The tools will automate, build, test, and deploy workflows in a Kubernetes environment. Why are namespaces used in Kubernetes? Namespaces provide isolation within clusters, organizing resources by team or application. They also help control access through RBAC. What is a blue-green deployment in Kubernetes? A blue-green deployment maintains two environments, allowing traffic to switch between them. It minimizes downtime during updates. What is canary deployment? Canary deployment gradually releases changes to a subset of users. It allows for in-production testing and reduces the risk of introducing bugs. How do you handle secrets in CI/CD pipelines for Kubernetes? Use tools like HashiCorp Vault, AWS Secrets Manager, or Kubernetes Secrets. They securely manage sensitive information in pipelines. Explain Kubernetes horizontal and vertical scaling. Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Horizontal scaling, it adds more instances of a pod, while vertical scaling increases the CPU or memory resources allocated to that existing pod. Horizontal scaling adjusts the number of replicas in a deployment or replica set, when vertical scaling is only suitable for applications requiring more computational power without adding instances. What is the kubectl port forward command used for? The kubectl port forward command forwards traffic from a local port to a port on a pod within the cluster. It is used for debugging or accessing non-public applications. How does the Kubernetes API server authenticate requests? So we have methods and process. So begin with the methods. Authentication is managed via client certificates, bearer tokens, OIDC tokens, webhook tokens, and basic authentication. So now as of the process, the API server verifies credentials. Then it proceeds with authorization and admission control checks. What is a job and cron job in Kubernetes? A job, start with the job. A job manages short-lived tasks or batch processes, while also it creates pods until a specified number of completions are achieved. Control job, it schedules jobs to run periodically based on a cron job that we have set, and it's ideal for regular tasks like backups or report generations. What is the difference between ReplicaSets and replication controller? ReplicaSet, the newer controller, supports set-based selectors for more flexible pod matching. Deployments for advanced functionality often manage it, while the replication controller, it's an older controller with equality-based selectors, and it is less flexible, primarily replaced by replica sets in production use. All right, well, this is all that I wanted to share with you in terms of some of the questions that you may come across when you interview for any Kubernetes related job. And I hope this has been very, very helpful to you. If you like this video, just show it, like it. If you have not subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so that you are notified every time we have a new video like this one come out. Well, thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best. God bless as you apply for your next job, and we will keep in touch. I'll see you in the next video.